is Video Game Sophistry. Your one-stop shop for video games, news, reviews.
Oh my god, he just ran in.
And time-wasting fun.
Hi, I'm Andy Burkowski from Video Game Sophistry. Today we have the great pleasure to speak to Fergus Urquhart, CEO of Obsidian Entertainment, the greatest game developers on the planet. How are you doing today, Fergus?
I'm doing great, and thanks for that intro.
We have a lot to talk about today. We're going to talk about Project Eternity, gaming in general. Now, for the three people in the universe who don't know, what exactly is Obsidian Entertainment, and what kind of great games do you guys develop?
Well, we're a developer in Southern California, and we've been around for about 9.5 years now. We focus pretty much entirely on role-playing games. And the games we've done that people may have heard of is Star Wars Knights of the Republic 2, Fallout New Vegas, Dungeon Siege 3, Alpha Protocol, and Neverwinter Nights 2. That's the kind of the big stuff that we've done.
You've had great success, like you said, with an array of RPGs. Now you're taking the big jump into the crowdfunding service called Kickstarter with a new game, Project Eternity. What exactly is Project Eternity?
Well, Project Eternity, a lot of us before we worked for Obsidian, we worked for another company called Interplay, which had a RPG division called Black Owl Studio, which I was the founder of. And back then, we worked with a developer called BioWare, and on these on Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate 2, and internally we made Icewind Dale and Torment. And these were great a lot of people call them sort of the resurgence of sort of PC role-playing games. And they were just fun games that people love to play. But they sort of stopped being made, and we were having a real challenge trying to get people interested and publishers funding of it. And so when Kickstarter came around, we're like, hey, we can go back and make these games, and we don't have to go to a publisher. We don't have to deal with a publisher, and we can really give people the games that they remember fondly again.
Mm-hmm. Now, just something that happened recently, I know you mentioned BioWare in the recent news that the two doctors are in fact retiring. I know this is not exactly Project Eternity related, but I was wondering what your opinion of that is.
Well, Ray and Greg are great guys, and they're still very much my friends. I talk to them pretty frequently, and and I wish them all the best. They put an immense amount of time and really tried to build the whole RPG brand of EA up. And I think sometimes you need to take a break. I think in anything. I mean, you look at movies and books and novels and a lot of entertainment. And I think just sometimes after you work for so many years so intensely and build so many great things, sometimes it's time to take a break. And I think that's kind of where Ray and Greg are.
But you're not at the taking a break stage just yet.
No, maybe I'm just more of a masochist than they are.
Yeah.
But no, I still love making role-playing games, and I think that's the difference in some ways. Being, it's really hard to be an independent developer, and and for those people that maybe don't know what that means, so we kind of work for people that, this horrible way to say it, we work for people who are going to pay us,
Yeah.
and a lot of the times that means, which is a challenge, but it also means we have more options. If we don't want to make a certain style game, we don't have to pitch that. And I think that that's a little bit different. I mean, it kind of puts us in a different position. Of course, the challenge is that we do need to get other people to give us money to make games, and that does require a certain amount of convincing, and that's where a game like Project Eternity is sometimes hard to get funded because it's just not something that's interesting to the publishers based upon their model.
And now back to Project Eternity. Like we said before, here we spend a lot of time talking about Kickstarter projects. Usually, from the people we do talk to, it's for smaller game developers that try to facilitate these new projects and are just starting out. Obsidian churns out the AAA titles. Why make the choice for developing this particular project on Kickstarter?
That's a really good question. I think a lot of it is because we want to make the game. I mean, that sounds strange, but it's a game we really want to make, and it's a game we feel we can really make well. And and I don't mean to repeat myself, but it's funny. I was just talking to a publisher about an hour ago, and they were asking me, well, why didn't you come talk to us about this game instead of putting it up on Kickstarter? And I said, I think I'm a pretty good salesman, but I can't think of how good of a salesman I could be to come into your office and ask you for money for a PC role-playing game.
Yeah,
it's just not something that a lot of the publishers are built around, and so that it kind of just made sense to kickstart it.
I bet a lot of publishers are, again, kicking themselves because in terms of money, you had the initial goal of funding $1.1 million in, I think it was a little over 30 days. And you were able to reach that in just over 24 hours. Was this something you expected, and why do you think so many people are so interested in this product?
We didn't expect it at all. And I think that's where we actually we were kind of taken aback, and we sort of gotten some feedback from people. Maybe we shouldn't have launched it on a Friday, and maybe we should have had a lot of our stretch goals already available and things like that. It was just something we just didn't expect, and so we've been spending a ton of time over the last few days. We've been on the boards. I myself have probably responded to 600 messages on Kickstarter, and so we're really trying to catch back up. So I think what it was is there's just pent up demand. I think it's one of those things where sometimes, there's certain games that are easy to get made and some games are hard to get made. And I think a lot of it when it comes to, I don't want to say it's like an underserved population of people, but I think that's kind of what it is. It's sort of like, I think as any industry grows, and, the game industry is still pretty new and we're still kind of all figuring it out. And I think sometimes what happens then is sort of like parts of it sort of get lost in the shuffle a little bit, and particularly when it's not Call of Duty or the bigger RPGs like Skyrim. It's sort of like these people who we love these games, but no one's making them. And I think that's what's been awesome about Kickstarter is just lets us go and make those games. I think the other part of it is just people know who we are, and they have a lot of trust in us to make these games. It's what we made in the past, and we just have some great guys like Chris Avellone, Josh Sawyer, and Tim Kaine who people know really well, and I think that really helped as well. We have we kind of have people here that have names in the industry, and so there's a lot of trust there. And I think when there's a lot of trust, people are happy to help you out.
Now, it's still a long ways to go, but what more can you tell us about the worlds and the characters, essentially the meat and bones of the game, Project Eternity?
Well, there's the thing. We're still deep in the design phase, and we're still kind of really trying to figure stuff out. Really, our focus is, hey, while we're going to have some new ideas, and we're going to definitely have a twist to the world that Josh Sawyer's been talking a bit about online. The goal again is like we don't want to get a lot of it here is we don't want to go completely off into the weeds just to go off into the weeds.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people when they're looking online, they go, hey, we would love it if this was just a Forgotten Realms D&D game.
Yeah.
That's what's been missing. I think a lot of times you see a lot of games like they have to be different just to be different. And absolutely, Project Eternity is going to have things that are new and special and different and unique. But the whole of it is not meant to be that way. It's like I myself, like right now, I love making role-playing. I mean, I love playing role-playing games. If I go home right now, there's not necessarily a whole lot of new stuff for me to play. I mean, I'm still enjoying Skyrim and I'm enjoying a lot of other games, but there's not even a whole lot of stuff on the horizon. And I think that's just the thing. Is like we want to make sure we really kind of deliver that fantasy role-playing experience that everybody loves.
Project Eternity will be using the classic Infinity engine. You've had a lot of success with this in the past. Why make the choice to bring it back?
Well, I think actually how we're really working it is we're sort of taking what the Infinity engine was and actually porting that into a new engine. So when we haven't yet talked about what that engine is going to be, we're going to be releasing that information very soon. But what that's going to allow us to do is actually change how it works to an extent. Like technology's moved a lot, really far in the last 10 years, and so we want to reflect that in Project Eternity. So that doesn't mean straying away from what the Infinity Engine games were, but it's taking in like actually having 3D characters, having a combination of 2D, 3D backgrounds, and really taking what technology is available, but not trying to be on the bleeding edge either. I think where Baldur's Gate and a lot of those games did really well is even back then you didn't need a Cray computer to run them, and we want to do the same thing. We want to make sure that everyone out there, even if they have a reasonable computer to play the game, that they'll be able to.
This ties into my next question, but is there a big concern because you have so many people who are funding this that you're unable to, well, obviously you're not going to be able to make everyone happy, but so many of the hardcore RPG fans want it, like you said, to almost be a direct port from the games of 15 to 25 years ago. Since Kickstarter essentially means the contributors are your boss, how does this affect the development cycle from this game in comparison to other games you've worked on?
Yeah, it means we're going to be talking to people a lot. I think that's the thing. I mean, and what we're working on is making sure that we've been upgrading our forums and we've been doing all these things to really help us be able to talk to everybody. But I think the end is we still there's a part of this that is ours and there's a part of it that's the fans. And a lot of it is to make sure that, because if there was actually a post up on our site the other day that said, hey, this would be if they listen to everybody, it would be a Japanese turn-based dating sim with insect people, and so I think the thing is what we try to do is we try to get to the meat of what everybody wants and understand that, and there's always people that are going to want different stuff. But the thing is really to kind of key upon the major stuff, and that doesn't mean making it bland, and that doesn't mean making it compromising everything. It's just like, okay, there are X number of people that want turn-based out there, and maybe we will do turn-based, but the real focus is to stay with like the real time with pause, because that that's what people know about the Infinity Engine games, and I think that's the thing is we're going to pull what we really see as the key to the Infinity Engine games. And then kind of look at it from there, and because a lot of people are going to have opinions about what they want to see on top of that, and that's when we're going to listen, and say, hey, if we just did straight races, which we're not going to do, but if we just did the straight races, then people would like, hey, you're not doing anything new. So it kind of goes back to what we were talking about a little bit ago, is just making sure that we hold to what those games were and have new stuff that kind of makes the world feel fresh and new.
In broad strokes, do you have more or less freedom developing a game this way than you do in some of the games of the past?
Oh, I think we absolutely have more freedom. Actually, that's a bad way to answer.
Okay.
We have a different way of freedom. We have a
there
different kind
you
of
go.
freedom. So we have a different kind of freedom. I think that with the fans, we can engage. We can talk to people, and we can have more of an honest conversation about what is possible, what's not possible. I think sometimes when we work with publishers, we have great people we work with at the publishers, but still a lot of the people that control what happens are not on the project day to day and have a lot of other agendas. Like, a lot of big publishers says, hey, as a company, we're trying to do X right now. Like like as an example, it is important that every single one of our games supports Kinect as an example. And it doesn't matter what the project is. It does, it has to support Kinect, and it has to support it with, 12 features.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, our producer from one of our, from our publisher comes, say, hey, you got to do this. Well, but we would go, well, that doesn't actually help the game. And it'll be different with the fans. With the fans, it's more reasoning and making sure they understand why we're doing what we're doing, so they're okay with it. And it just means communicating a lot. And that's probably the difference. With our freedom with a Kickstarter project comes with understanding that it's going to require us to communicate a lot.
Very, very excited about the project. Now, lastly, with Project Eternity, plainly, you're going to be earning more money. What can fans expect as the money comes in terms of the stretch goals, in terms of, is there a point when you think, this is where we believe we're going to end up, so let's develop that product, or are we just continually adding more and more and more?
That's a really good question. It's interesting to look at the whole Kickstarter phenomenon because I don't know if anybody has a great answer, but I can tell you my answer. And I think the thing is that there's a point at which the game, we have enough to make the game, and the game at a pretty big scope. That's probably a good way to put it. And I think that what we'll do is people continue to be interested in. We will just keep on adding in. But what we'll also be doing is sort of, particularly with our stretch goals, we'll be start adding in other things that people can get. They can get for their pledges. And that seems to be a thing that people really enjoy with Kickstarter. It's like, hey, you're going to get the game and you're going to also get something else.
Yeah.
And so we're really going to be focusing our stretch goals on there. And then there's some other open-ended things, like we're talking about multiplayer and talking about mod tools and talking about all the different languages and things like that. And that's the other thing we have to kind of take in, as we're looking at it all, to make sure that we still make the game awesome, but we're listening to these bigger things that people want to see. And whether those are going to be stretch goals or as we feel we can do them, we just let people know. We're kind of on the fence as to kind of what to do.
It seems like a difficult, like you said, path to cross, because in a lot of ways you're getting more of this finance and you have an idea of the game and you want to develop that game, but you also want to advocate the fact that you have more money, so you want to create more. So it seems like what you're doing is very different than the other developers we've talked to that are just kind of saying, yeah, we're going to keep going. And unfortunately, when I talk to them afterwards, when the products are done, they don't reach what they initially thought their product would be, unfortunately, isn't exactly the same thing.
Right. Now, I think we're lucky in that we're making a role-playing game.
Yes, very much so.
In that RPGs just, you kind of, I don't want to say you keep on adding content into an RPG until you have to stop, but that's kind of, and I think all games are like that to a point, but an RPG is even more, because an RPG is so much about options, quests to go on, options for crafting, options for races and classes and quests and all that kind of thing, that, incrementally, RPGs are I don't think easy is the wrong word, but are you can just keep on adding into them. And I think that's what's great, and that's what allows us, as we get more money in, we can just keep on putting it into the game. and along with sort of some of the other big feature, big ticket items that we're putting in our stretch goals. But I think that's cool. I mean, and I like that because it just means that the game that people are going to get is just going to have more and more stuff in it, dependent upon how much money we make.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, Fergus. Again, all the information of Project Eternity is available right underneath this video. Make sure you contribute while you can, because there's only a couple weeks left, but I guarantee you that number is going to keep going up. Do you have the estimate of exactly on September 18th of what you guys are at now?
As of September 18th, we're right almost at 1.6 million.
There you go. Well, thank you so much, Fergus. Thank you for taking the time, and make sure everyone checks out Project Eternity.
Thanks a lot.
I'm Andy Burkowski for Video Game Sophistry.
Head to www.puresophistry.com for more.